Okay, so we are going to continue Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. We are now on chapter 16. Sophie woke to an amazing sunrise, pink, purple, and orange streaks blending the ocean and sky into mirror images. She enjoyed the view, but she would need to figure out a way to darken her glass walls. Sunrise was too early to be awake every day. Grady and Adeline were in the kitchen finishing up breakfast when she came downstairs. Sophie hovered in the doorway, not sure if she should interrupt. Either you're an early riser, Grady said as he moved the scrolls he was reading to make room for her, or you didn't close the shades. She sank into a chair next to him. How did I do that? How do I do that? Just clap your hands twice? How about some breakfast? Adeline asked. Her voice sounded tired, and the shadows around her eyes were so dark they looked like bruises. At Sophie's nod, she conjured up a bowl of orange juice, glop, and a spoon. Each bite tasted like warm, buttery banana bread, and Sophie was tempted to ask for seconds, but she didn't want to impose. She didn't know how to talk to them, so she stared at Grady's scrolls. The sloppy handwriting was impossible to read upside down, but she did notice a symbol in the corner, a hooked bird's neck with the beak pointing down. The image tickled her mind, like she should know what it meant, but she couldn't find the memory it belonged to. Grady caught her looking and rolled them up. Boring stuff from a long time ago, he said with a smile, but it was obvious he didn't want her seeing the scrolls, which only made her more curious, especially when she spotted a line of runes running along the bottom, and this time they made sense. Project Moonlark, she blurted, before she could think it through. You can read that? Sophie nodded, scooting back a little when she saw the look in his eyes. Anger, confusion, and fear. Usually I can't, but this time I could. What's Project Moonlark? She whispered. Nothing you need to know about. But Alden had said the word she used to babble as a baby might mean moonlark. That couldn't be a coincidence. She tugged out an eyelash. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. It's just these are extremely classified documents, and those are cipher runes. No one is supposed to be able to read them unless they've been taught the key. Why can't I read it, then? I have no idea. Maybe the way humans taught you to read or write made your mind see things a little different. That was the same excuse Alden had given for why she couldn't read normal runes. It wasn't particularly believable, but she couldn't think of anything better. She was pretty sure she'd remember being taught to read cipher runes. If you're ready to go, we should get those medicines Elwyn prescribed. Adeline interrupted, standing. Each word was drawn out, like the whole sentence was one long sigh, which didn't exactly make Sophie eager to go, but she couldn't really say no, so she rose, fidgeting with the ruffles on the purple dress she was wearing. It was the simplest dress Stella bought her, but she still felt ridiculous. Did the elves have something against jeans? Grady nodded. Say hi to Kessler for me. Adeline groaned. This is going to be interesting. Sophie glanced at Grady, hoping he wasn't mad about the scrolls. He gave her a small smile, then Adeline took her hand, and they glittered away. They leaped to an island called Mysterium. Small, identical buildings lined the narrow streets like they'd been cut from a mold. Street vendors filled the air with the scent of spices and sweets, and conversation buzzed around the crowded sidewalks. Sophie's and Adeline's gowns stood out among the simple tunics and pants of the other elves. Hey, how come they don't have to dress up? Sophie complained. Mysterium is a working class city. Oh, but wait, doesn't everyone get the same amount of money in their birth fund? Adeline nodded. Money has nothing to do with social rank. Our world is talent based. Those with simpler abilities work simpler jobs, and they dress correspondingly. Seems kinda unfair, Sophie mumbled. You can't control how much talent you're born with. Why should you live a lesser life? Their lives aren't lesser. They have houses just as fine as Alden's and ours. Or ours, but when they come to work, they come to a different type of city. A city designed for their kind of work. Adeline's grip tightened on Sophie's hand as several people waved at her. You okay? Sophie asked. Yes, I'm just not used to being around so many people. She kept her head down as she led Sophie through the busy village, avoiding the other elves they ran into. Everyone seemed to recognize Adeline, though, and whispers followed them wherever they went. Look, it's Adeline Ruin. Can you believe it? I thought she never left the house. She doesn't. Adeline pretended not to notice, and they didn't slow their pace until they reached the only building that was different, a store painted 20 different colors, with curved walls and a crooked roof, like it belonged in a nursery rhyme. Slurps and burps, your merry apothecary. The door belched as they entered. The store, could you imagine entering a store that belched? The store was a maze of shelves filled with colored bottles of liquids and pills. Adeline went straight to the back, to a laboratory complete with beakers bubbling over burners with rainbow-colored flames. A slender man in a long white lab coat hovered over the experiments with a skinny boy at his side, probably his son, since they both had the same tousled strawberry blonde hair and periwinkle eyes. I'll be with you two in a minute, he promised as he added a blob of orange slime to one of the test tubes. Oh, it's Dex. Get ready to add the emeraldine, Dex. The boy used a long pair of tongs to pick up a glowing yellow vial and hold it over the experiment from a safe distance. Ready? Not yet. He slipped on a pair of thick black glasses. Okay, now. He jumped back as the boy poured in the contents of the vial. The beaker sparked and released an enormous plume of smoke, filling the room with the smell of dirty feet. Ew. Sophie fought off a gag and hoped the concoction wasn't on Elwyn's list. First one we haven't exploded all day, Adeline, he exclaimed. Is that really you? Hello, Kessler. Hello, Kessler, he repeated with a convincing impersonation of her soft voice. That's all you have to say? Get over here and give me a hug. Eveline moved across the room like sludge, but he wrapped her in a big bear hug anyway. You look at it, but what are you doing here? You never come to town. I know. Ellen said I need to get these for Sophie. Sophie? Did I miss something? Yes, Sophie lives with us now. Kessler's eyes darted between Sophie and Adeline like he couldn't decide who was more fascinating. Since when? Since yesterday. It's a long story. Sophie, this is my brother-in-law, Kessler, and my nephew, Dex. Hi, Sophie mumbled, too nervous to make eye contact, especially since these were Adeline's family. She could practically feel their stares. Sophie will be starting at Foxfire on Monday, Adeline explained. Cool, Dex exclaimed. What level will you be? Level 2? Me too. Do you know your schedule? Whoa! He leaned close to her face and pointed to her eyes. How'd you do that? I turn mine red sometimes. Totally freaks everyone out. But I've never seen brown before. I like it. Actually, I just have brown eyes. Really? Excellent. Do you see them, Dad? I do. Where exactly are you from, Sophie? Sophie's been living in the Forbidden Cities until a few days ago. Sophie cringed at Kessler's asked, What? At the same time, Dex shouted, That's the coolest thing I've ever heard! Was it awesome? I bet it was awesome. Hey, are you human? Is that why you have brown eyes? I'm not human. I was just raised by them. The words came out, but they felt wrong on her tongue. Dex, I think you're making Sophie uncomfortable, Adeline said before he could ask another question. Am I? Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sophie shrugged. It's okay. I know I'm strange. Dex smiled, flashing deep dimples. I like strange. Hey, do you... The door burped again. You. A tall woman in a dark green cape stalked through the store, pushing past Sophie and Adeline, a beanpole of a girl in a hooded pink cloak dragged behind. What's wrong now, Vika? Kessler asked with obvious annoyance. Ask your son. This has his handiwork written all over it. She whipped the hood down from the girl's head, revealing a shiny, bald scalp underneath. Adeline, Sophie, and Kessler gasped at the same time. Dex, meanwhile, seemed to be trying very hard not to smile. Hey, Steina, did you change something? 'Cause you look different today. Wait, don't tell me. Mama! Steina growled. Kessler's cheeks twitched like he was battling a laugh. We don't sell any balding solutions here, Micah. Just because you don't sell them doesn't mean you don't make them, she insisted. Kessler glanced at Dex. You know how to make them too, Dex reminded him. I know it was you, you stupid Sasquatch, Steina screamed. Dex rolled his eyes and pointed to a spot behind her ear. Did you know you have a dent in your skull right there? Sophie bit back a laugh as Steina lunged for him in a flurry of bony appendages. That's enough, Kessler shouted, pulling them apart. Control your daughter, Vika. Why should I? It's not like you control your children. Kessler looked like he wanted to throttle her, but instead he gritted his teeth and said, We have heroids in stock. Take some on the house, and she'll have her hair back in a week. A week? Steina wailed. I can't go to school looking like an ogre? Dex suggested with a wicked grin. Steina screamed. If my daughter misses any days of school because of your son, I will make sure he is held responsible, Vika yelled. You can't prove anything, Dex grumbled. I won't need to. They'd expect nothing less from a bad match. Kessler's friendly features twisted with obvious rage, and he needed several deep breaths before he spoke. Sophie didn't know what a bad match was, but it must be a heavy insult. Okay, here's what we're going to do, Kessler practically spat. You two are going to get out of my sight, and when I finish helping these customers, I'll see if I can make the heroids more potent. If I can't, wear a hat. Vika stared him down, but he didn't flinch. I guess we have no choice. It's not like anyone else would waste their lives making ridiculous medicines in a useless shop. Ooh, burn. If it's so useless, why does everyone buy from me? Kessler countered. Vika couldn't seem to find a retort, so she threw the hood back over Steina's head and dragged her toward the door. I'll get you for this, Steina promised Dex. Ooh, I'm really scared. Steina's bitter eyes focused on Sophie. What are you looking at? Nothing? The door burped again, then slammed. Kessler pounded his fist against the table, making everyone jump. Do I want to know what that was all about, Dex? Probably not. Kessler sighed. You need to be more careful, Dex. You know how some people feel about our family, especially Vika and Timken Wagner. Well, Adeline said quietly, this store hardly helps the situation. Perhaps if you made it more traditional. Absolutely not, Kessler interrupted. Nothing brings me more joy than watching all the stuffy nobles squirm in here. Just like making me happier than a shiny bald Steina, Dex added, grinning. Kessler couldn't help laughing. Well, Dex, since you made the mess, you get to tweak the heroids. I need to help Adeline with Owen's list. Dex scowled and stalked off to collect the supplies from the back. He returned a few seconds later with an armful of vials and spread them on the work table with a sneaky smile. This will make her hair grow faster, he whispered to Sophie, but it'll also give her a beard. Sophie giggled and made a mental note never to get on Dex's bad side. What did that girl do to you? She's just evil. Trust me. Adeline disappeared to her room when they returned to Havenfield, and Grady tried to teach Sophie how to light leap alone. She'd never been so horrible at anything in her life. The first 20 times she tried, she couldn't feel the warm feathers. No matter how many times Grady told her to concentrate on the tingle in her cells, after that she couldn't hold on long enough to do anything except break out in a full body sweat from the heat. On attempt 57, she finally made a solo leap to the other side of the property. She completed the next 5 in a row and felt ready to collapse, so she wanted to cry with relief when Grady announced she'd practiced enough. But when he checked her nexus, he frowned. He pointed to the gray rectangle, which displayed only a sliver of blue. That means your concentration is at 10%. Everyone your age is at least a 30% by now. Yeah, and they'd been light leaving their whole lives, but she chose not to point that out. She didn't want Grady to think she was difficult. I'm trying as hard as I can. I know, Grady said, worrying the edge of his tunic with his hands. But I don't think you have any idea what you're up against. Alden told me Bronte doesn't want you at Foxfire, which means he'll be watching you like a hawk. He'll check with your mentors. He'll monitor your tests, and at the first sign of weakness, he'll step in and try to have you expelled. I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes for you to be transferred to Exilium. And let's just say it's somewhere you don't want to go. She nodded, swallowing a mouthful of bile. If she hadn't been freaked out about starting Foxfire before, she was now. How was she supposed to pass when she was so far behind? Grady forced a smile. I know you're struggling to adjust and have a ton to learn, but you're going to have to push yourself as hard as you can, and I promise I'll help you every way I can. Eveline will too. A flash of light pulled her out of her mounting panic attack, and two people appeared a few feet up the path. She recognized Dex from the Slurps and Burps, and the woman he was with resembled Adeline, except her hair was messy and her yellow gown was wrinkled and plain. Had to come see for yourself, Julie? Grady asked. I'm allowed to visit my sister, aren't I? She asked, her eyes riveted to Sophie. Grady laughed. Where's the rest of the family? Home with Kessler. I didn't want to overwhelm you. And maybe you wanted time to gossip about interruption? Grady teased. Sophie, why don't you show Dex your room? I have a feeling the girls have a lot of talking to do. Sophie had no idea what to do with Dex. She's never had a friend before, much less a boy, much less an elf. Dex seemed pretty comfortable, though. He wandered her room, touching everything that caught his interest. He thought her human clothes were hilarious, and was even more excited when he found the scrapbook she'd hidden on the bookshelf. Hey, is that you? He asked, pointing to the photo mounted to the cover. Sophie's eyes stung as she glanced at the picture. Her dad and sister waved at the camera while she hid in the background building a sandcastle. Yeah, that was last summer. Is that your dad? Yeah, well, that's the guy who raised me, she corrected, blinking away the tears that had formed. It was going to be hard to get used to saying that, but she had to. She wasn't his daughter. He didn't even know she existed anymore. What happened to them? I'm not allowed to know. She couldn't keep the sadness out of her voice. As much as she didn't want it to matter, it was hard not knowing where they were or how they were doing. Sorry. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. She wasn't sure she was ready to look through the scrapbook, but Dex already had it open and was flipping through the pages. She hoped there weren't any naked baby pictures in there. Why did you take your picture with a guy in a giant mouse suit? Actually, better question. Why would anyone wear a giant mouse suit? We're at Disneyland. His head snapped up. I have my own land? What? My last name is Disney. She laughed. I'm pretty sure it's a coincidence. He squinted at the picture. Are you wearing fairy wings? Okay, I think we've had enough fun with the photos. She pulled the scrapbook away from him before he found anything else to make fun of. Sorry, I just can't get over it. I mean, I've never seen a human in real life, and you lived with them. He shook his head. How come you live with Grady and Adeline? Are you related to them? I'm not related to anyone. You're alive. You must have parents. My real parents didn't want me to know who they are, so as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist. Dex didn't seem to know what to say to that. Honestly, she didn't either. Hey, this is one of those music things, he said, picking up her iPod. Yeah, how did you know? My mom's in human movies. She doesn't have many, but one of them had one of these things in it, and I've always wanted to see one. We don't have anything like them. Really? Why not? Elves aren't really musical, not like dwarfs. They have some awesome music. It's dead. No outlets here, no way to charge it. I don't know much about human technology, but I bet I could make it solar powered. Really? Well, I can give it a try. He slipped it into his pocket and went over to her desk, rifling through all her Foxfire stuff. He scanned her schedule. Sir Conley's pretty cool, I hear. But good luck with Lady Galvin. She has the highest fail rate of any mentor ever. I'm pretty sure she failed her last prodigy a few weeks ago. Sophie's heart slammed so hard she was surprised it didn't punch through her chest. Were they trying to make her fail? She wouldn't put it past Bronte to rig her schedule. But this was school. She'd always been great at school. She took a deep, calming breath. Hey, I could help you find your way around tomorrow, Dex offered. Relief flooded through her. She wouldn't have to do this alone, except you wouldn't mind being seen with a weird new girl with the weird brown eyes and the weird human past? Are you kidding? I can't wait to tell everyone you were my friend first. She smiled. We're friends? Yeah, I mean, if you want to be. Of course. Dex's smile widened, flashing his deep dimples. Cool. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Chapter 17. Sophie was still trying to figure out which of the strange gadgets from Della were school supplies when the chimes rang. Dex had arranged to meet her at Havenfield so she wouldn't have to arrive at Foxfire alone. She laughed as she let him inside, and I thought my uniform was bad. She couldn't believe she had to be seen in a blue pleated skirt with black leggings and shirt vest cape combo. Dex's was worse, though. The blue lace-up jerkin over a black long-sleeved shirt and blue slacks with pockets at the ankles. It wasn't so bad, but the waist-length cape made him look like a really lame superhero, Captain Blueberry to the rescue. What's with the capes? She asked. I know, they're stupid, right? But they're a sign of status, so we have to wear them. Capes? Yeah, haven't you noticed that only the nobility have them? Foxfire is the only noble school, meaning you have to go there in order to be in the nobility, so we wear half capes to demonstrate that. At least next year we get rid of the wimpy Halcyon. We'll be mastodons. Each grade level has a mascot. Level 2 is a halcyon. These dumb birds that can sense when a storm is coming, but level 3 is a mastodon. So at the opening ceremonies on the first day of school, we get to dress in these cool elephant costumes. Be glad you missed wearing the halcyon costume. We looked like idiots. Dressing like an elephant didn't sound nearly as appealing as Dex seemed to think, but she'd worried about that next year, assuming she was allowed to stay at Foxfire. One problem at a time, she reminded herself. Hey, you're wearing the ruin crest, Dex said, pointing to the triangle patch sewn where her cape hung over her heart. A scarlet eagle soaring with a white rose in its talons. His patch was square and looked like a bunch of chemistry equipment twisted into a tree. We wear our family crest on our uniform. If Grady and Adeline are letting you wear theirs, they must be serious. Are they adopting you? I don't know. She'd never thought about adoption. She was still getting used to the idea of being an orphan. What if they didn't adopt her? Everything in her life was so temporary. Her enrollment at Foxfire, her home. It felt like any second it could all be ripped away. Where are they anyway? A gnome ran in during breakfast and yelled something about a manticore stinging a stegosaurus, and they both ran out. And people say my parents are weird. It's pretty crazy here, but they seem nice enough. Grady and Adeline? Oh yeah, they're great. They keep to themselves a lot because of what happened to Jolie. I never knew them before it happened, but my mom said they used to throw these huge parties everyone looked forward to all year. Now they never leave the house. So weird. A lot of people are never the same after someone they love dies. Really? Yeah. She started to ask why he seemed surprised, but then she remembered what Alden had explained about the elven lifespan. Death was probably a rare thing in this world, which must make it even harder for the few elves who'd had to cope with it. My mom thinks it'll be good for them to having you around. Maybe they'll get over it. She wasn't sure they would ever get over it, but his words calmed her panic. If she was good for them, maybe they'd want to keep her. She did understand what they were feeling, maybe better than most other elves. Hey, wait a minute. How do you know about adoption? I'm guessing you don't get a lot of orphans around here. We don't. We had a big drama a few years back. Some kid named Wiley, whose dad was exiled, had his mom die too. Something broke her concentration while she was sleeping and she faded away, I guess. I don't know much, just that Sir Tiergan adopted him and retired from Foxfire. Sir Tiergan? The telepathy mentor? Yeah, wait, how do you know about him? Alden mentioned him. She mumbled, trying to recover. She'd forgotten to pretend she had no connection to Tiergan. Oh, yeah, he hates Alden. Blamed him for the dad being exiled or something, but I might be remembering wrong. Wiley's a few years older than me, so I've never met him or anything. You ready to go? She slipped her satchel over her head. Yep. How do we get there? He led her up to the cupola and pointed to hundreds of crystals hanging in a round chandelier. The Leap Master 500. You're lucky. My parents aren't nobility, so they're only authorized to have the 250. It's missing tons of cool places. Foxfire, he shouted. The crystals rotated until one lowered, casting a beam of light toward the ground. You ready? She wasn't, but she forced a smile across her lips, took a deep breath, and let the warm feathers whisk through her and pull her away to her first day at Foxfire. That's a school? Sophie asked, trying to make sense of the bizarre structure spread before them. A 5-story glass pyramid towered over everything from its place in the center of a wide stone courtyard. Baba. I'm trying to read. The main building wrapped around the pyramid in a sharp angled U and was made entirely of stained glass. 6 towers, each a different color, separated the wings, and a 7th tower, another Leap Master, stood in the center, taller than the others. To the left sat a domed amphitheater and 2 smaller buildings, all built from the same glowing stones as the castle Fitz had shown her in Luminaria. To the right, 2 giant towers, one gold and one silver, twisted around one another, combined with extensive fields of purple grass. The place seemed more like a small city than a school, and Sophie tried not to imagine how hopelessly lost she would be. Dex led her into the bottom floor of the glass pyramid, which was packed with prodigies in uniforms the same colors as the building's 6 towers. All hope of finding Fitz faded when she saw the chaos, and Sophie ducked behind Dex, hoping no one would notice her. What are we doing here? She leaned in and whispered. Every morning starts with orientation. It's no big deal. Dame Alina, or our principal, just reads off any announcements while they take attendance. How can they take attendance with this many people? He pulled his registry pennant out from under his collar. They track us with these. Thousands of bells chimed an intricate peal, and everyone faced the far wall, which now showed a close-up of Dame Alina, a stunning beauty with porcelain skin and fragile features. She smoothed her caramel-colored hair and pursed her lips. Good morning, prodigies. First and foremost, whoever put Rick Rod in my desk over the weekend will. It's not funny, she snapped at everyone as everyone cracked up, her eyes narrowed. Mark my words, whoever it was will be punished to the fullest extent of my abilities. She let the threat dangle before she continued. Last week we had 14 prodigies detect special abilities, a new record. She clapped and everyone joined her. And last but not least, where is she? Ah, there. A spotlight focused on Sophie. Everyone please welcome Sophie Foster, a level 2 prodigy starting her first day at Foxfire. Every eye turned to look at Sophie. Her name hissed around the room like a viper's nest. Sophie. Is that how we welcome someone? A second of silence passed before everyone clapped. Sophie looked around for a hole she could crawl into. That's better. That concludes today's announcements. Have a wonderful day. Everyone applauded as Dame Elena flashed a brilliant smile and blinked off the screen. Then all eyes returned to Sophie. The whispering started again. Get me out of here, she begged Dex. He laughed and led her out the nearest exit. I can't believe that just happened. It's not a big deal. She had to force them to clap, Dex. She buried her face in her hands. Everyone was just surprised. We've never had a prodigy start in the middle of the year. She groaned. Why did she have to be the exception to everything? Just relax. You'll be fine. Come on. He led her into the main building, which was divided into 6 different wings by the towers, one wing for each lower grade level. The walls of the level 2 wing were the same blue as her uniform, and the banners bore a halcyon in mid-flight. Dex switched halls so many times Sophie lost count, and she was beyond confused when they entered an enormous quad with glittering crystal trees scattered throughout the room. A statue of Halcyon filled the center, sparkling like it was carved from sapphire instead of stone. Prodigies chatted as they put books and supplies into the narrow doorways lining the walls, but everyone fell silent when they noticed Sophie. Okay, this is the atrium, Dex explained, ignoring the spectacle they were creating. He checked her schedule and led her toward the far wall, to a door marked with a rune she couldn't read. This is your locker. See that silver strip? He pointed to a shiny mirrored rectangle just underneath the symbol. Lick it. The lock uses your DNA. That's gross. It tastes good. She doubted that, but she could feel everyone watching her, so she licked the silver rectangle. Malamute? The faculty picks the flavors. They change every day, but watch out for Elwyn's picks. Last week it was pepper. It made everyone sneeze like crazy. Dex's locker was 2 doors down, and a loud croak sounded as he opened the door. Dex yelped and slammed it closed, but the whole room filled with the stench of rotten eggs mixed with morning breath and a dash of dirty diaper. Ew. She put a muskog in my locker, he screamed. A high, wheezy snicker erupted behind them. They whirled around to face a girl towering over them like a giant stick insect. The girl's head was covered with a mass of frizzy brown curls, so it took Sophie a minute to recognize her as the ball girl from Slurps and Burps. 2 girls stood next to her, cackling like evil hags. How did you get in my locker? Dex demanded, stalking up to Stina's towering body. His head barely cleared her shoulders. You left it open, idiot. I guess remembering to close doors is too hard for the son of a bad match to remember. Kids are so cruel. Dex ground his teeth. Then his eyes lit up and he pointed to a row of scraggly hairs along her jaw. Nice beard you're growing there. Hope you know how to shave. Stina felt her chin and shrieked. She grabbed Dex by the shirt. You little... That's quite enough, Miss Hex. A slender woman in a deep blue gown and cape ordered as she stepped through the wall and pulled them apart. What's going on here, and what on earth is that smell? She put a muskog in my locker, Dex told her. He put balding serum in my lush berry juice on Friday, Steiner retorted. The woman shook her head, her long raven hair swishing behind her. Such behavior. And in front of our new prodigy. Her almond-shaped eyes darted to Sophie. I'm sorry you had to see this, my dear. You just walked through a wall, was all Sophie could think to say. Facers do that sometimes. She turned back to Dex and Steina. You two should be ashamed of yourselves. Apologize. Dex scowled. Steina glared, but they both mumbled sorry. You two obviously need time to bond, so you can spend all the week together in lunch detention. But Lady Alexine, I don't want to hear it. Dex, get that muskog out of here before it stinks out the whole place. And Steina, you seem to have some strange hairs on your chin. You might have to have Elwyn check them. Dex cracked up and Steina turned beet red. She covered her beard with her hand and stalked off, followed by her minions. Lady Alexine swept across the atrium, disappearing through the far wall. See what I mean? Dex asked as he kicked his locker. She's evil. What exactly is a muskog? It's kind of like a frog, but it burps stinky gas when it's scared. So you should probably get away from here unless you want to smell like muskog fumes all day. He didn't have to tell her twice. She was already the weird new girl. She didn't need to be the stinky weird new girl. Hey, you're the prodigy dame Alina told us about, right? The new one? A small boy asked, catching up with her as she set off through the halls. He was a couple of inches shorter than her, with messy brown hair and a very round face. Sophie, she corrected. I'm Jency. Whoa, you have really weird eyes. Cool. Anyway, so everyone wants to talk to you, but they're all afraid. So I decided to show them how it's done. Um, thanks, she said, struggling to keep up with his rapid fire speech. He talked like he'd had buckets of sugar for breakfast. See, I told you she'd be nice, he shouted, making several kids around them turn bright red. Sophie's cheeks were probably redder. I've never heard of you before, and I know pretty much everyone, so where have you been all this time? Jency asked. She'd been hoping no one would ask that question. Alden had instructed her to be honest. I was living with humans, she whispered. Humans? Everyone fell silent. Sophie managed a nod. Well, that's weird, but cool. You'll be human girl. It'll be awesome. She cringed. How about just Sophie? If that's what you want. Thanks. They hit a fork in the hallway and she took the right path on a whim. Jitsi followed her. Where are we going? Elementalism? She didn't miss the fact that he used the word we. He laughed. Boy, are you going the wrong way. Come on, I'll take you there. Part of her wanted to run from the humiliating boy who was drawing way too much attention to her, but she did need help, so she swallowed her pride. They backtracked, making so many twists and turns that Sophie had to admit she never would have found it without him. Finally, they entered a narrow hall that smelled like a storm right before the first drops of rain fell. Jency pointed to a warped wooden door. Your session's in there. Oh, and be careful. I just hate you to get zapped on your first day. Okay, wait. What do you mean zapped? Jency was already gone. She stared at the door, wondering if he was kidding. This was a school. They wouldn't allow anything dangerous around the prodigies, would they? She took a deep breath to calm her nerves, squared her shoulders, and pushed the door open. A loud thunderclap shook the floor, and a bolt of lightning shot out of the ceiling, knocking her off her feet. Whoops. Bubba, Mommy needs to end the video. Let's see, how long is chapter? Thank you. Alrighty. So, I read a few chapters there. Don't forget to... Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And all of my links are down below. And I will see you guys in the next one.